Guys, I watched the rest of Andor.
Finally.
What else do you want from me? I did do it. Like, wouldn't you be more upset if I hadn't watched the rest of Andor?
Yes. You're supposed to have done it by
Then
now.
give me a break.
Hey, real quick, if you haven't watched Andor Season 2, go pause the show, go watch right now, and then come back.
There will be slight spoilers
There will be
in
slight
this episode.
spoilers,
yeah. Hey, speaking of this episode, this is the X1 Legion cast. I'm Randy. I've watched the rest of Andor. That's Matt. He has riot troopers. He might open one today. That's Mitchum. He has a table he said he was going to show us pictures of and never posted any. Roast him, Discord.
Okay.
Wookiee chat, invade hobby harassment and harass Mitchum.
Okay. I give them one emoji.
There it is. Right there.
Oh.
It's being worked on.
Okay.
Worked on.
Yeah.
It's primed. That's good.
It's annoying to paint. Oh my gosh.
Hey, we've got a great episode for you today. We have an interview with Will Schick and Will Pagani from AMG, and we're talking about Star Wars Legion, believe it or not. Crazy times, really. Yeah, we have kind of a gamut of questions we talk with them about, but you'll want to stick around. There's a couple little tidbits they spill, and we'll get into that pretty quick, but we're not going to let an episode go by without hobby harassment, so let's continue to dig into Mitchum here. What's going on with this table?
Yeah, okay. So full steam ahead on the table. Let's see. I've worked on more area terrain for the table.
Oh, that's finished?
I need to add some more like this stuff on like the blank spots, and then I need to paint it green and then put some grass on it, and then this will be finished. But
for the audio listeners, he's almost started.
Yeah, that's fair. Let's see. I was totally.
He's off screen.
This is really bad.
He's coming back now.
I can't remember which one of these I just painted. I think it was this one, but I have two of these now.
Ooh,
yeah,
they're flowers.
And then
audio listeners, he's now off screen again.
Okay, so this is my new purple bottom instead of brown, and I'm going to put grass on this, and this one will be done. So I think this is going to look a lot better on the table than the brown and green that I have.
I think you should get a few rocks, like bouldery type rocks. You need me to print you some scatter rocks?
Yeah, that'd be great. Okay. I have a whole bag of barricades here that I was going to kind of like paint up and throw around like the ATTE and stuff, or just have some variety. But yeah, rocks would be nice.
You need some crates for the under the ATTE too.
Yeah,
little campsite situation.
Spice crates.
Ooh.
I don't know if I want rocks. I kind of want. I want it to be floral-y. I don't want it to be rocky.
There are rocks in the forest and stuff.
I know, but
I'm not talking about like big rock formations, but like
I have like this that
I
I could take these off and put more of these on. But like you're talking about like just this, not like that.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll print you some. Just so you have some size variation.
All right, that's fine.
Well, very good. Any more minis? I know you just cooked on a bunch of them. So I'll give you a pass, even though our Discord will not.
Yeah, I know. No, it's been all table.
Okay.
Been all table.
Okay.
So because I got my list painted for Big D, which I haven't really talked about, but we'll save that for a different video.
Ain't talking about it today.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, so I got my list painted for Big D. I've just been playing around with that. Got my Ahsoka painted, Jedi Guardian, stuff like that. And then I've just been trying to knock out this table so I can have it at least by the end of the year for a big tournament that we're hosting at the end of the year.
Cool. Okay, for me, I haven't really done some painting. I'm work in progress. Here's Bethesda. I need to wash it still, so it's just base coated right now. Been printing Mitchum, his ATTE. I've been printing the ball turrets. So it's like a half of a ball turret, and then there's the back half, and then it has like a little square key that kind of goes in. So when it goes together, it's like a little ball turret. So pretty cool. It's the ATT by Darkfire Designs. It is awesome. It is super ridiculously complicated. So it's gonna probably look pretty good on the table. So that's pretty much me for hobby.
Let's see. I am a bit behind, so I'm probably the one that needs to be harassed. But I feel like I've become Discord dad, so I will put people in timeout if you're too mean to me.
That's convenient.
Let me see. I did get this Celestin sleeper done. I think it looks pretty good.
Nice.
I am going to probably switch over from actually finishing models and just hurry up and getting dudes on bases, because I'm ready to actually play some Rebels. Yeah, I don't know what to say, but I mean, I'll be honest. Like, this is what I've really been doing. It's been cardboard. It's been cardboard city over here, man. I'm just filling up binders. So, yeah, I don't know what don't know what to tell you. I'm full card goblet right now, so I apologize, but I don't. This is my Super Bowl. That's all I'll say. Okay, well, great. Before we hop in this interview, we wanted to do a couple of important announcements. First of all, you can always join us in our Discord to harass us about hobby and let us harass you back. You can also join the Wookiee Revolution that is always happening in there. And we can start some other revolutions if you want. If you want to start a Shadow Collective cartel in there as well, I'd be happy to join that with you. But we have some events coming up that we wanted to discuss real quick. A big one we wanted to shout out is a Nova that is coming up on August 27th through the 31st. We have some awesome information to share with you, that the winner of the Nova GT will win their entry into the Worlds event at Adepticon 2026. So I don't think they're calling it a invite, but I mean, you're getting your ticket paid for, so it's kind of an invite. Super exciting to see that AMG is supporting this for an event again. So if you live in that Virginia East Coast area, get out to Nova. Our buddy Jeff, right?
Yes, Jeff.
They both start with J, and I always worry I'm going to mix it up. Is taking over as TO this year. That guy seems like he knows what he's doing when it comes to running and managing things. So I have a feeling that it's going to be an excellent tournament. So go out there and win you a Worlds invite ticket at free entry, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. But yeah. And we might be sending some prize support to that or something. I don't know. We'll have to discuss. But yeah. And then Mitchum, take it away.
Yes. So like we hinted earlier, Oklahoma is hosting their first 2-day Legion event in November, November 15th and 16th. So make sure you sign up for that. There will be Legion, there will be Age of Sigmar, and there will be Trench Crusade. Definitely come down and play Legion with us. We're going to do a 32-man tournament. We have a block of rooms set aside for any out of towners that want to come by. So please, if you're listening, come hang out with us. All three of us should be there in some capacity. I will be the main event runner and head TO. So if I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off, that's just how I am. It'll be fine. But these two guys should be playing. So we are having a local tournament on June 21st, so a little over a week.
It'll be this weekend if you're listening to this the day it comes out.
It'll be this coming weekend. The winner of that will win a free ticket, $65 value, to the Oklahoma Open first place will get a free ticket. So make sure if you want to come, any local guys, make sure you sign up. Any out-of-towners want to come, try to win a free ticket, will do. Oklahoma Open, we will be doing a social X&1, just Oklahoma Open Legion gathering somewhere. The tournament is hosted in Norman at the Embassy Suites in Norman. So I will find a restaurant that is close to the area down there. I'm thinking the garage, because that's just going to be easy to host, 10 to 20 people, depending on how many we have come. And plus, it's not too far away. It's not like there's a garage in Norman that we could go to, so it's not like a really far drive for everybody staying. So yeah, if you have any other ideas, just let me know. If you have any other questions, please DM me, or if you want to help in any way or donate price support, please reach out to either me, Travis, or Jerry. Travis and Jerry are a huge part of this behind the scenes. Unfortunately, they may not be able to be there in person, but they are definitely helping me. So please thank them. And if you have any questions, please reach out to us, because I could not do that without them, and I couldn't do it without these guys. And we're very excited. And this is just going to be our first step, and hopefully in years to come, it'll be bigger and bigger and eventually be an AMG sponsored event. That is the goal. So, yeah.
Great.
Amazing. If you listened to this whole intro and didn't skip directly to the interview, know that you're one of the real ones. And we're going to be quiet and let ourselves and the Wills take it away. Later.
Yep.
Hello and welcome to this X&1 Legion cast. We've got an awesome interview today. It's the usual Randy, Matt, and Mitchum, but we've got Will squared with us today. We've got Will Schick, VP of Creative Development and Strategy, and Mr. Will Pagani, Development Director at Atomic Mass Games. How's it going, guys?
It's going great. It's Wednesday, I think, and we get to hang out with you for the end of our day. So
Wonderful.
days are pretty meaningless around here.
Well, yes, that's how I feel when I hang out with me too.
Oh man.
Well, thanks so much for joining us. It has been a while since we've got to sit down and chat with you. A few things have happened and been announced since then.
A couple. We were just talking about this. It was about a year ago. So shame on you for not asking us back. What was that about?
We didn't want to seem too eager.
We were just sitting waiting by the phone for a text, and we got completely ghosted. I thought we had a good time.
Man, it was a completely different game, I think, back then. Almost
it was.
It was a totally different game.
Almost literally.
Yeah, almost literally. So, wow, man.
Well, great. So we're kind of in between big announcement times currently. So we've got just a few kind of different questions that kind of run the gamut here, and we'll just kind of get into it and see what happens. Right?
Let's do it.
Roll
unless you guys want to have like a big new release time, like right now.
Well, you know what? You ask your questions. We'll see how it goes, and then you can ask about Riot Troopers at the end. We'll see how we feel.
Okay.
So ask the right questions, Matt.
I've got them up there. They're in the plastic wrap. Whether they get unwrapped or not is up to you guys.
I like it. He's already on the right track here. He's already on the right track. I still have the receipt.
Yeah.
He's holding the minis over the edge of the building.
Again, we'll see how it goes. If it goes well, you're opening those boxes live before we answer any questions.
There you go. Oh, that's
I've done live hobby.
You don't have to put them together. You just have to open the shrink. You gotta put them into an unreturnable state, and then
fair enough.
I think it would be fun if you had to build them live. Cool. So, so this first question here, there is always new Star Wars content that's coming out. How do you guys approach selecting characters, units for the game? Is it more inspiration based or shaped in collaboration with Lucasfilm? Andor just finished. There was some very insurgent-y type rebel people in that show, and some very controlling of riot type stormtroopers with angry robots. And so perhaps there was some crossover inspiration there. Take it away.
Well, so it's a combination of things, right? For the most part, we're looking at the overall history of Star Wars for inspiration. The timelines between how a Disney Plus show like Andor or even a movie like The Mandalorian that's coming out next year gets developed is about half the amount of time it takes us to actually make hard plastic miniatures. So what that means is that typically, even though we can try to do things like day and date of the new media, it's very difficult. And because of that, it typically we fall into a pattern of if we're going to do something like from say Andor season 2, you'll see that 18 months to maybe 2 years after we see it on the screen and we all know about it. Because to create the game rules, and I think to try to do what we're always aiming to do, and Pagani can likely will back me up on this, but maybe he'll disagree and it'll be really interesting. Our primary goal always is to appropriately translate the Star Wars galaxy onto the tabletop, right? We want the tummy feels to be accurate, or at least as accurate as possible. And in order to do that, you have to have a lot of information about what the thing is, what it does, right? There are rare situations like the Riot Troopers where we do get to kind of extrapolate based on various media. We've seen the Electro Baton used in video games like Fallen Order. We've seen the Riot Shields used in a couple of different places. The combination of Stormtrooper plus Riot Shield plus Stun Baton, not exactly something that we can point to a specific instance of in the media and say this is here. We instead say, okay, well, if you take all these things in an aggregate, you can kind of assume that this unit probably exists. We really wanted a close range unit for Empire, one that complemented the Stormtroopers in terms of their shooting and their range and all that stuff. And so we worked with LFL to say, hey, this is an idea we have. Let's throw this together. Unbeknownst to us at the time, we were going to get a huge exploration into the Imperial Security Bureau in Andor season 2, which is where those troopers come from, right? So the folks we see on Gorman that get sent out to kind of like get things started in the way that Captain Kaidan and he as the Imperial Fixer wants to go.
Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert! I don't think so.
If you haven't watched Andor,
if
by
you
now,
it's been around for long enough now, I think.
Good looking out, Will, but
watch it.
So those things, right? And then the KX droids show up and everything like that. That just happens to be an interesting coincidence in terms of like parallel lines of thought, but things that maybe are things that we can explore into the game going forward. There's always great opportunities for that. But at the end of the day, what we're really looking for is we are looking at, okay, what haven't we done in the Star Wars galaxy that is really compelling to players? So, units, characters, things like that we haven't seen yet. What is going to be good to push the game forward? So in the Riot Troopers example, right, it was, we really want to expand Empire core options. And this is a playstyle that we haven't seen really explored within that faction. So how can we do that? Is there a way in which we can do it canonically that feels right for the world and for the faction identity that we want to push? Those kinds of things. So it kind of all goes together, right? And we are planning 5 years out, which also means that we do leave space to take into account media stuff, but it also does work against that day and date stuff where like you're probably not going to see, something that perfectly aligns with the next Star Wars Disney Plus show, right? And it's not going to be out within like a month or even a couple of months after. There are, like I said, there are times where we get the opportunity to do that. They've been very infrequent. Like even if you go before us, right? I think there was the Force Awakens. They did a day and date with the announcement for that. That was a big challenge and something that the entire like team pushed for at the time from Fantasy Flight when they did that for X-Wing. I think they did another one for X-Wing, which was the Last Jedi. They had the bomber show up. And then we did the Obi-Wan show. And to my knowledge, those are the 3 times that we've done something within the miniatures games themselves as Asmodee, whether FFG or under us at AMG, that have been day and date. So it's a very challenging thing to do, and therefore what we're really looking at is, okay, here's some great inspirations. Like Andor is really feeding into the future plans and future ideas of Legion, but it's not necessarily something that we're like planning for around the same time or date.
Is there going to be a cool Krennic card where you get to stick your finger on top of someone's head and
Ooh,
walk
yeah.
around?
It will give you a lot of suppression. So it'll be called pin down.
There you go.
Fair enough.
Well, cool. Continuing on with new units that are inspiring. As someone who enjoys playing Shadow Collective, I was very excited about the WLO5 announcement, as well as the Hondo and his pirates. I did notice that there is some cool different pilot miniature options for that particular tank, and I was just curious if those were just aesthetic, or perhaps they might be a sign of something we could expect play wise for that unit. And I think is there like a cool Weequay guy riding on the back too with like a big sniper rifle? Does that more of a transporting situation, or is it more of like the X-34 where like, oh, you got a high velocity sniper rifle guy on the back of your tank or something? I don't know. Just throwing things out there. I mean, say what you will.
Well, Pagani can probably hit, at least in the general overview, the different drivers.
Yeah, so the tank has options, right? And we wanted to go into a bunch of different places, but when you're ordering around mercenaries, it can be pretty tough. So there are upgrade cards related to the different drivers that sort of let you change the affiliation of that tank. So you can make it Black Sun, Pike, Weequay. I think that's it. The Ewoks aren't going to be driving that guy around. So yeah, and the upgrade cards do other things besides that as well. But that's sort of their sort of main function, and the hobby opportunity of people to sort of create the Black Sun version of it or that kind of thing is something that's very exciting. If I remember correctly, and Schick might be able to give a little more depth here, there are a bunch of extra like Weequay pirates that you can kind of add hanging onto it in different places. A bunch might be an exaggeration. There's a few.
I think there's like two or three, right?
Which once again, as a hobby opportunity, right?
Yeah. Well, and it does tie into the fact that it can be used as a transport in specific instances within the game. And so it kind of lets you like play that out with your Weequay raiders if you want to. And then the other pilots, like one of the big things is Shadow Collective is such an interesting battle force in terms of its mix. And we knew that, well, we don't know this, but one of the conceits of Shadow Collective is that you have the ability as a player to say, oh, I just want to play Black Suns, right? So Shadow Collective is both it's a conglomerate, but it also narrows down if a player wants to. So if your dream is to play just a pure Black Suns force, the idea is that the Shadow Collective battle force can allow you to do that. Now, are there enough options for that yet? Maybe not. With some hobbying and converting, you could get the swoop bikes to fit into that, those kinds of things. Like there are ways to do it. So when we were looking at adding the Wheelo to the overall, we literally said, well, you have these 3 distinct groups that can drive it. We did briefly consider having a Mando driver as well, but that didn't quite pass muster when it came to like the connection between the Mandos and that specific vehicle within the Star Wars galaxy. So we wound up not doing that. But because of that, and looking at the rules and how players could integrate that. So if you want to play a Black Suns heavy Shadow Collective force, you're not going to want your tank to be a raider and not be able to be commanded by your Vigo. So in that case, right, we needed a way to do that. That also allowed us to kind of customize the vehicle with the upgrade cards as well, adding slightly different flavor. They're not dramatic. I wouldn't say like they completely change the playstyle, but they do hopefully have a nod to the way in which those different affiliations function as organizations within the overall Star Wars galaxy and things like that. So it is a combination of both, right? Like giving people the ability to hobby and customize their army in the way that they want. Also kind of recognizing that Shadow Collective is a unique beast in that it does many things, in addition to just being, where all three-ish of these affiliations come in. And the Weequay is going into that battle force as like the newest core unit and bringing the tank along. Also having their Raider affiliation, right? There was a lot of things to kind of try to make sure all worked and synergized well, even outside of the fact that some other of the factions can take the Wheelo as a mercenary unit as well.
So
Randy's
it sounds
happy.
like I need to get 6 of these instead of just 2.
I mean, if you want all the options, it's certainly possible. I am somewhat excited to see some of the hobby potential that people do in order to like factionalize the tank, and I think that'll be really fun for folks who want to do it. And of course, there's Dallas and the sculpting and engineering team. They're always looking for ways to inject more of that hobby possibility and potential into everything that we do, whether that's the rebel troopers and all the extra heads that you now get, which I know is divisive because maybe I want all of my rebels to be humans, and you can't really do that out of a box anymore due to frame space. But then, of course, there are folks that wanted to see more aliens. So I don't know. You never make everybody
Swap
happy
heads
all the
with
time.
each other.
Yeah, you can swap
Yeah,
heads between packs.
Yeah.
But things like that, and then when it comes to things like the clones, we've always had a couple of different helmet options, but now you have the hobby choice to say, I want phase 1s, I want phase 2. We're not seeing that weird mix that we don't really see ever in the media, because we assume that the equipment got swapped out pretty quickly. Overall, in terms of the deployment of it, which doesn't line up with any real world military ever. But hey, it's a sci-fi fantasy galaxy, so of course it would work seamlessly.
Yeah.
In that way, and things like that. So it's a combination of all of those different things, but we're always trying to figure out how do we, a huge part of it is the assembly and the painting and the customization. So how can we add all of those elements in ways that make sense within Star Wars?
I'm very excited.
Yeah,
Awesome.
you held Randy over. That's going to do at least like 2 years worth of waiting for him.
Yeah.
I was watching. He's just sitting there like smiling. He's like,
give us something else to list build with. So
yeah, that's awesome.
So,
There's
okay,
like at least tens of new combinations.
one with every faction now. Okay, so moving on to some more exciting models coming to the game. I know here in our local meta, the talk of the town has been the customizable commanders for every faction, and we're all so excited to kind of see how they're going to play between the customizable rules, the hobby elements you guys have been really big on, which are just fantastic. Where do you guys see their power level in the game? Are they going to be about the same as like their generic counterparts, or is the idea to kind of they're going to hold their own next to like a named character?
So, I think one of the most important things to think before we get into this discussion, or things to talk about before we get into this discussion specifically, is one of the major sort of pillars of us making these was we never wanted to create a version of a customizable commander that would replace wholeheartedly a named character in Star Wars. Right? So our goal is not to let you build, like with the customizable Jedi, you can't build Obi-Wan, you can't build Anakin, you can't build those things.
Okay.
You might be able to build someone that is 80% as good as Anakin and costs 20% less points, but he's never going to overshadow Anakin, or they. There are many options inside of the kits for all people and body types. So that I think is a really important thing to note, is that our hope is that they will never say, hey, I never need to play Leia again because I have this character. That being said, we are very hopeful that they will make a big splash, right? They are super cool. They're super thematic. They give players all sorts of different options to play with, both in terms of rules as well as hobby opportunities. And I think that they're going to make a very large splash because there's a lot to tinker with. There's a lot to optimize. You have a lot of choices. There's a lot there that is very interesting to explore and very, very powerful stuff. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Schick, but I could talk about this all day.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think if you're looking for like put a pin on the scale, right? They are somewhere between your named character and your generic like point filler commander guy, right? Now you as the player have a lot of customizable options in terms of how far on the scale you push that. You can obviously kit them out to the ends of the earth and have them have a high point cost. With a lot of things that they can do, you can do the bare minimum, in which case they're still going to be higher points and have more options than that generic used to. But they're obviously going to have a much different power scale. And I think from the design standpoint, what you won't see necessarily is you won't see like, oh, this unique ability Tempted exists on Anakin, and there is a customizable card that says I can take Tempted, right? Those kind of iconic things that make a character, you're not going to see. You're also not going to see similar, if Anakin or Obi-Wan, if Anakin is the best at dealing damage, you're not going to be able to get your customizable to that level. Now, could you create, using the toolbox, could you create a character that felt like similar to Anakin or similar to another Jedi that may not be in the game? 100%, right? We took archetypes from all across the different factions, in terms of playstyle, in terms of other characters, right? And this can be a way for players, because I think whenever we think about the character we would be in a story, usually what we're doing is we're pulling elements from other things that we've seen and said, oh, I would be as cunning as Han Solo, and I'd be, as compelling as Leia, and I would be as pure of heart as Luke, and that would be my character. And how does that work within the game so that you can be there? But at the end of the day, you don't get on the movie poster, I guess, is kind of the way it kind of works out, right? And I think that is what we really want out of the experience, is that, players are not overshadowing the main characters of the story, but they're able to participate alongside them as really fun and compelling, options. And then of course, we know from shows like Andor and Mandalorian, right? Season 1 and 2, especially before the finale of 2, that the Star Wars galaxy is not every planet has a Luke Skywalker just hanging around a corner ready to solve problems. So if you want to tell more of those stories with your army composition, or that's what's interesting to you from a hobbyist standpoint, these characters allow you to do that, I think, in a way that is much more personalized and much more interesting than just using the generic Imperial officer, the generic rebel captain, those kinds of things, right? So there is a lot of player choice to that. And then, as Pagani mentioned, right, balancing that within the game was one of the big challenges of the whole process.
So it sounds more like secondary characters, not necessarily main characters. More like,
Yeah, I
more or
mean,
less,
in terms of the level, right? If you were to hear their power, but I do think, and Pagani maybe can talk about this a bit, right? One of our big goals was to say, if I don't want to take a named character, but I really want to just have my own characters. I want to tell my own story. I don't want to see the Luke Skywalker show or the Anakin Skywalker show or whatever. These, just taking generics as your commanders, they don't put you at a handicap.
Yeah,
I think is the big thing, right? So I don't know if Pagani wants to kind of build off of that at all in terms of the play testing and what we looked at for that.
For sure, right? Like the hope is that you can tell your own story with these guys, but the hope is also that you feel good doing that, right? That these are powerful options that you can use, that they may not replace one of the named characters, but they give you a new thing that you can do that is just as powerful as those characters. If that makes sense. So whereas you may not have, and I'm going to keep going back to this because I'm a Gar guy personally, but there won't be anybody there that's better with a Jedi than Anakin. Or better with the Jedi, better with the lightsaber than Anakin. They're waving each other around. And that's on purpose, right? But you might get somebody that's very, very good with a lightsaber but then also has some range presence or some support presence or something like that, right? So, and that can still be very powerful and very different than Anakin, but still be something that you can build a list around, something that you can focus on, something that you can do those things with. So they are certainly powerful, right?
And the combinations do allow you to do things, right, that do smooth over some of the faction identity gaps. A great example that we've talked about before is Andrew Dursum, really in playtest. He's the lead developer of the game. He really landed on this Imperial officer agent build. It was an agent because it was the operative version of the customizable that he fell in love with, where he would take kind of the melee kit and the identity and things like that, and he would effectively build this budget roadblock that could go toe to toe with a Jedi for about 2 rounds before he gloriously died. But the reality is that that's really all he needed. So and then he didn't have to worry about investing significant points into an Inquisitor or something else, right? He could put those points into other things that he would rather have for the force that he wanted to build. And so I think that's another, it's another really interesting thing about these is that they do allow players to flex the customization to fill holes or gaps that maybe a more expensive character can fill, but you're also paying for all the other things it does. And that can't be discounted, right? There's many times where it's like, well, I would love an Anakin, but I would also love another unit. And so if I could get what I want out of Anakin through this build and it costs me the points less to get another unit, maybe that's what I want. And so that's another part to it, right? They're not comparable in cost, but weaker. They're, as Pagani mentioned, they're cheaper in cost, which allows you to have more flexibility and options in your other slots. So
it's like a la carte Anakin. You're like, I just want the lightsaber. I don't need the other stuff. So just give me that. Yeah. So
exactly right. And that's like for the competitive folks out there, when you're min-maxing your list, that is very important, right? If I can say, hey, I can pay 70% of the cost of Anakin and get the 70% of Anakin that I want and not the 30% that I don't, they're going to do that every time, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a thing that you can absolutely do with these is you can build them to be exactly what you want them to be and nothing else, and you only pay for what you took. So
and then you're not even investing necessarily in command cards too.
Yeah.
So like if Anakin, you bring Anakin, you need to bring his command cards probably.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, I just bring in Joe Jedi. I don't, I can do whatever else I'm doing. So.
Yeah, and I think the command cards, that's another really interesting piece to how Legion functions, right? In terms of the value of a character is that just, even if you can build Leia exactly from the Rebel operative or commander and agent pack or whatever the second one is, I think it's an agent. I think it's a Rebel agent. You can't replicate her command cards. So already, right, a significant portion of what makes the character within the game and what adds so much strategic layers and tactical flexibility to that character is now not there, right? And of course, these characters are point costed against the idea that they're not able to take some of the crazy bonkers command cards that named characters can. But there's a lot, there's a lot of nuance to how it all works out. And ideally, they should just add options. They should not be restricting anybody from doing what they want to do with their army. That's always the goal. The goal is that everything adds an interesting new choice, not that it strangles out something that players either liked or, exists, even if they don't like it. We still try not to strangle out things that players don't like because maybe someday they will.
Well, we kind of already talked a lot about this. Our next question has kind of already been addressed, but I'll ask it. With a customizable Jedi, it does sound like there will be ways to build them to represent certain archetypes and iconic visual styles, as far as like kits and the rules, like what we've been talking about. Even if they're not tied to like a specific character, and that all I'm kind of just reiterating and summing up what we just talked about. But it does sound like you will be able to build not necessarily Anakin, but 70% Anakin. Or if you want to build a specific Jedi on the council that maybe not is in the game, you could get a version of him or her or something.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
that.
I think ideally, right? If you love Coyote Mundi and he's not in the game yet. I don't know. I just picked one on the council.
Randy really doesn't like Keanu Mooney. That's like his thing.
That's the wrong choice, Will.
If you love,
if you love Plo Koon,
if you love Quinlan Voss,
I'll take it.
Then I think through this system, right, you can create what you think is close to that character, right? What you're not going to get is you're not going to get the command cards. So you're going to be missing that element of a character that you would see if the character was fully within the game. But absolutely, if you have a favorite that's kind of missing, or you want to emulate somebody with your character that is like your favorite, hopefully there's enough options within the various cards and the different builds that you can get close to that. Like, will you hit it on the nose? I don't know. It kind of depends on how in depth to the character and how specific you are. So that possibility is there, and that's kind of like the overall hope, right? Again, the way in which we assume most players come to a narrative, story like Star Wars that has lots of interesting characters is usually you're saying, oh, I love this attribute of these characters, so that would be part of my character, and then this attribute here and this attribute here, right? Very similar to an RPG approach. And that was a conversation we had all the time, was if we can make these into, an RPG character build session, right? A creation session, but within the realm of Legion, then we've really successfully hit our goal for what these troopers are supposed to be.
Sounds like it'd be really good for like a overarching narrative campaign or something like that.
Very possible. Yeah. Very possible.
Yeah. I don't know.
Little Empire at War, Legion style, maybe.
I do want to. There may be some questions for what Schick has said here, where they don't bring command cards. What Schick is talking about is they don't bring character-specific command cards. There are command cards included. There are not as many as say a full character or something like that, and they are much more generic, obviously, because these are much more generic. But they do have command cards in their boxes. So
interesting. Okay,
that's super cool. I'm very excited about that. I think everyone is very excited about these characters. So
yeah, all the interviews that we've done with tournament champions recently, I mean, everything that they're excited for is all about the customizable commanders and everything. And then I think second would have to be the card packs, so we can crack packs just like the Magic players can. So all the card goblins, at least in our community, are super excited about cracking packs. So with the alt art and stuff. So
yeah. And something that's exciting for me about it is like, this is a new direction, So it's like, hey, we're off the rails a little bit. So it's like, now we can go anywhere. So that's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very, provided that they land well with the community and people see value in them and they do what we were hoping for, right? We definitely have plans to expand on the ideas and the ways in which we can approach these characters. Because again, I think for most of us, right, that customization within the list creation and the army building, and again, that hobbyist journey of telling your own story and making your own regiment within the Star Wars galaxy or whatever you're doing, that's a large part of what brings us to the game. It's not, the game itself is great. We love playing. We love getting better at the actual like play of it, but the hobby potential and the ability to be able to put yourself or your own characters on the table and see that stuff happen is a huge component of, what drives a lot of these games, and the most successful ones in the world have always had that. And so it was a really exciting thing to be able to work with LFL on this, have them give us their blessing, and to be able to start exploring more of that player individuality, not just with how you build a list, but also what you put into it.
Awesome. Well, with everything that's been announced, so Adepticon, the April update, what is something that you guys feel like has gotten less buzz or less attention than you would think it should? So like, what's something that's underrated that's come through that you're like, man, more people should be talking about this?
I'm gonna get a little grumpy.
This is your moment, Pagani. You complain about this all the time.
No, that's fine. I'm gonna get a little grumpy. So when we originally released the super squads, right? The squad upgrades that add a bunch of guys to units. They've been largely dismissed by the community, and I think in all of our playtest games, right, they've been not like crushing games or anything, but they've been good. They've had a lot of uses, and this, of course, varies from squad or from unit to unit, right? Like not all of them are in a great place or anything like that. But and I will not claim as such, but I think they have been largely overlooked and dismissed. And even with some of the recent results of them doing very well in tournaments, some people are still dismissing them. Uh, and I would love to see more exploration through all of that, right? I see people doing well with them and people talking about them. And we ran the math on them again a couple weeks ago. We were like, hold on, what are we doing here? No, we're right. This is fine. The math is good. Now we just got to get the play right. So I would love to see more of those explored and tried inside the community. And that is, I think, something that is currently not as explored as it could be.
Yeah. Okay. Which, in a way is good because they've been out a while. And if they're still exploring, we still have room to kind of go.
Yeah.
Then that's not, that's not bad. It's not like the game has been settled already. So that's, it's good. We have a little bit of room to explore and improve.
Sure, but I think that's kind of where some of my grumpiness comes from, is that some people will say that the game is settled and they have not explored those things.
Yeah.
So
well, not
People that
everyone is
say
looking
that.
for the list that everyone says can't win to take it to a Worlds event and win with it. There are few people in the world that are like that.
Yeah.
Sir. Speaking of some of your
Talking
past
about-
exploits as a competitive miniatures game player that I witnessed.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think overall, right, what is maybe been overlooked, even since the first big batch of rebalances came out last year in July, is I don't know that we have yet really seen, although it's starting to happen, right? I mean, the 6 activation list that Ollie ran obviously was a big mind bender for a lot of the community, and it really, I think, opened some eyes to the fact that maybe the game isn't as solved as folks might have think it is. But I think like what's been overlooked is just the potential to try crazy stuff, right? To try really weird things that in the past you would have been like, no, common sense and player knowledge says this doesn't work. However, the game is really like, it is still the same Legion, but in a lot of ways, because of the different missions, because of the the rebalances and the changes to like things like squad size and those types of things, I think there is so much potential under the surface that people just haven't tried exploring yet. And so I would love to see. I think I would love to see players go a little crazier with the overall, like, okay, this is how we used to do it, but what if we didn't? Maybe it would be worse, but maybe it would be better, right? And I think whenever you see that meta breaking list that comes out from somebody that's piloted exceptionally well, right? It can't be overstated the fact that like player skill is a huge component of the success of that 6 activation list. But is there a 9 activation list that uses similar concepts that is just waiting in the wings? Like what is in the deeps, like the depths that we can't see, that is just waiting to strike? And I feel like, and again, this is personal perception, everyone can tell me they're wrong, but Pagani and I are pretty voracious when it comes to listening to all the podcasts and going on the Discords and all of that. I feel like even since July, right, the conversation wasn't, oh, what can we do now? It was, oh, this is the analysis based on how things were. So we haven't seen people being willing to fail, I think, is kind of where I feel like things are overlooked. Because yeah, you're going to try really crazy combinations. You're going to try things that didn't work in the past, and they might still not work now. Like I'm total honesty, right? There are still lists that just won't function. That's the reality. But for every 5 of those lists that like traditionally didn't function before and don't function now, there's probably 1 or 2 that people would not expect that do work really well. One of the things that that I saw at the UK, and I've seen even at Adepticon that have started to like pick up, is the X31 land speeder. Like I'm seeing fairly more of those. And in our play testing with them, we were like, oh, these things they're it. right? Like there are some builds that you can make with those that are super effective, and they can be really scary. And we kind of assumed that we would see them become more of a mainstay in certain builds within the Rebels. Right away, we didn't see that exploration, right? I think that unit was kind of overlooked in terms of like it's traditionally never been quite that strong, so let's not worry about it. Speeders overall have not been considered very worth their value, and some of that might be justified and some of it might just be not, right? Like groupthink often sucks down everything because it just conforms everything to one mass rather than looking at things individually, and how the differences between these things can really matter, especially within factions. So for me, that's kind of the thing, right? I would love to see more players who are willing to take the hard knocks to find, the diamonds in the rough that we haven't seen yet, but are probably there. Some of which, internally we saw in playtest, but we haven't seen play out. Whether our playtesting metas were different, which happens all the time, right? From time to time, or whether those things just haven't, been found. It's hard to say. But I think that's the thing, right? The excitement and wonder of just being willing to throw away the entire rule book, not the core rules. You need those to play the game. But the rule book of like what the community considers to be strong and good, or viable, is a moment that and I don't know why. Maybe it was because of how the rollout happened based on how we did things, and we could debate whether the path we took was the right one all day. I know everybody has their opinion on that. We did what we felt we had to do based on the circumstances that we had, and to keep the players informed and keep the game like moving forward, and to not have people fall into the trap of being like, well, they're not saying anything, so now everything's going to fall apart, and we're just one step away from the game being truly dead. All these different things, right? Like maybe the longer rollout is the reason why, because it didn't feel like a dramatic enough of a change at the time when it needed to. Like sometimes a different edition change does, where everyone's like, the rules are gone, we can do whatever we want, and then everyone kind of figures out what the new path forward is, and you start to get back into that normal flow of meta. But yeah, I think that's the thing. I feel like the opportunity to be weird and wild and different and try things that traditionally would have been like, that's a terrible idea, kid, slipped by, and it's still there, right? And I mean, but I think it's just, that's what I would love to see. I would love to see players just be like, you know what, I'm gonna take this crazy list because I think it might work, and then, oh no, it didn't, or it did. And to explore what the new rules and the new units and all of the different changes, because there were so many changes, actually means to the aggregate of the game and the overall play experience and player opportunity and agency, right? That's my long-winded like soapbox rant. There you go.
No, that's good. I mean, that's kind of what I was hoping for, a little bit rant from you guys. So, Grumpy Pagani, you're still welcome. You can stay.
Get out there and get weird with it, people.
Yeah, let's get weird. The X34 is terrifying, especially it's got that range 4 dice, or I don't know how many dice it is. It's like 9 dice. It's terrifying.
A Rebel road list I've been working on with double land speeders with swoop bikes and Lando and everything. That just sounds so fun. Like it just sounds like a great time, and that's all I'm here for, honestly. But with the new additions and everything, playing so defensive and kind of cagey and everything, and now being able to kind of move and get in a range 2 and fight and have different options to win the game with the secondaries and stuff like that. It's been I've become better at the game because it fits my play style more, which has been nice and just kind of a bonus. But it has brought, I think, a lot of other units back into the game and let people build new lists and stuff like that. So.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, going from underlooked things to things that didn't quite make it, as the game has grown and evolved, have there been any mechanics or ideas you found really exciting, even if they never made it to the table? So, second part of that, what makes something feel not quite right in Legions? Like you have an idea, but it just doesn't fit. So, what are you looking for as like a red flag? This might not be a good fit for the game.
So I can tell you the one that I was really excited about, which did work and is in the game. Maybe to the anger of some players and the happiness of others, because it's a divisive unit. But Bad Batch and the ability to do character units to me was a huge one. And it was definitely one of those times where I walked into the development office and slapped the design paperwork on the table and said, make it work. And I don't care how, but you're going to make it work. Because I knew right away they were going to be like, no, there's so many problems. And I said, just forget about the problems and just figure it out. Because it was the only way to do that unit. And to me, it was like, if we could crack that, we opened up so much more potential for Legion, for the goals that we had already stated as a group that we wanted, which was more character representation, more ways to take characters, all of this stuff, right? So that was the one, and it was very fun to watch the really great minds and dev puzzle through it and come up with these iterations that were somewhat crazy. And where they ended up was not where I thought we would be, to be honest. Like, I had my own idea of how to do it, but the way in which they actually implemented it in the game, I think, is very elegant for how Legion functions. It creates a very characterful unit, and I love the impact of the fact as you lose the characters, the unit loses its character. That to me was like the slam dunk. It was so good when we saw that play out on the tabletop. It was very thrilling, and it's a rules mechanic that we haven't seen since, but we have lots of plans for in the future. So, if you're like, oh, that was a one and done weirdness thing that they'll never do again, you are mistaken. We have a lot of things in the future plan that will utilize that mechanic. And I think, going forward, it's going to be a really key tool that we have in the Legion toolbox to be able to represent a galaxy far, far away.
Please don't ghost us on that mechanic.
Yeah, I'll say, if you want a list of things, I have suggestions. If you want things,
I'm also talking about a 5-year plan a little bit ago.
Okay,
So
yeah.
it's not a ghost.
Yeah. I was about to say.
Yeah.
5 years, guys. We'll see you guys back in 2030.
You can enjoy this interview in the year 2029.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, cool. So the next question here was put forward
Pagani
by
might have one.
Yeah.
You might even have one that didn't work.
Sorry.
I know. You're just going to skip right over him.
No, I won't.
Just make a
not
grumpy.
skipping Grumpy
Come on now,
Pagani.
Randy.
I remember you said you loved Bad Batch. That was your favorite unit last time we talked. So
Bad Batch are sweet. I got them. I don't have them here. They're downstairs. I've been playing Legion in my garage again, so that's been great. More than just work Legion. It's been perfect.
there we go.
I think the one should give you one that worked. I'll give you one that didn't work, which was indirect fire for mortars. We tried a lot of different things when we were doing the rules update. We did a lot of stuff, and it turns out when you have core units with mortars that are suppressive, that don't have to show themselves to get shot back, it gets real degenerate real fast.
Oh, Randy would not have liked that when I did that to him.
Nope.
Randy would not like that at all when I did that to him.
So, and I really wanted that to work, right? Because I love indirect fire as a concept. I love the idea of it. I love all of these different things. And that's not to say that we won't figure it out in the future, but it's not something that we were able to spend enough development time and put enough energy into when there's so many other things that were changing that were so important that we needed versus wanted. And this is something that we'll talk about a lot in podcasts, right? Is we have X number of hours to do these things in because this is our job. And if we can't do it in those hours, then it doesn't get done. So something eventually has to get trimmed, and indirect fire is kind of one of those things that didn't make it.
Yeah, don't give up. I need to mortar Randy.
No.
All right.
I'm dealing with that enough in other things. Okay. All right. Okay.
Speaking of Bad Batch, I wore my Bad Batch.
I know. I
shirt
saw the Hunter part. And I was like, oh my gosh, we nailed it.
Yeah.
It seems like it was planned. It totally wasn't.
Yeah.
Totally wasn't. No.
Okay. Cool. So this next one was put forward by our community, and they wanted to know if there
way
were
to
any.
deflect the blame on that. I like it.
That is absolutely what I'm
You
doing.
didn't see that bus coming?
Hey, that's why I put 2 in all my lists, man. Are there any current plans to revisit how cover works for speeders, bikes in particular, or do you guys feel like they're in a good place? Are we just behind on the times? Is the future of bikes bright and we just don't see the train coming down the tunnel at us.
Sure. So when we're looking at units and talking about reassessing them in general, right, there's kind of two paths that you can go when you're doing that, right? Which is, are we rewriting the unit card? Are we rewriting the rulebook? Which I guess is one path. Like, are we changing the rules of the unit? Or are we looking at points, right? And to me, a unit that sort of fills its role, so it does what it's supposed to do on the table, it's interesting, it's flavorful, it has gameplay that people enjoy. If that's a yes, it has those things, then we look at points. And to me, speeders are in the points camp, not in the rewrite/change rules camp. So whereas speeders may or may not be powerful right now, depending on the speeder, I believe that those can almost certainly be addressed through points and not rewrites. So I guess my answer to that question is no. We're not going to revisit how cover works or anything like that on speeders because it's working.
Yeah.
That is not to say that speeders are perfect everywhere and everything is happy times. That being said, they are really fast.
Yeah.
So they can do a lot of things that other units can't do. And I think this leans back into that let's explore some stuff and see how things go. Because they don't have to live if they go last. So now you can kind of play with that as an idea. And then can they score you points? The game is much more about points now than necessarily just kind of obliterating your opponent or not obliterating your opponent and just jumping on points at the end of the round or into the game. So the metagame has shifted a lot. I think everyone, including us and the community, are still figuring out exactly where speeders fit in the terms of the points curve. So
my hot take is speeders are not bad, actually. And Randy kind of opened my eyes to it because he went 3-0 at this local with basically a list with swoops, which I think swoops are probably the best speeder. But
they're pretty good.
Pretty much
that overrun is not to be ignored.
Yeah. If he's getting the objective he wants, he is at 12 on turn 4, and you can't really do anything about it. Just by the way, he's kind of trickling in speeders on back points, and you can't really stop him effectively. So it was pretty, for me, it's like, well, if I could maybe get better at my speeders, maybe I could do something similar. So
we talk a lot about the disconnect sometimes between what we see internally and then what we see externally, in playtest. And one of the reasons that speeders came out the way that they did, which I'm sure Pagani was going to mention before his internet hiccup, and we talked over each other because we're real good at that, was that speeders were very, very effective at the scenario grab game, right? And I think part of that might have been, when you're doing testing, you're focusing on certain things. So we have this whole new mission system. We have dynamic scoring. We're like, figure out if it works or if it doesn't. What are you going to, as a tester, what are you going to try to break? You're going to try to break the scoring system and how fast you can do it. How do I score as fast as possible? Well, I use really fast units. What units are really fast? Oh, speeders are really fast, right? So there's always that reality where, again, we can only play so many games. We have our own internal meta, both within the studio and within the playtest groups that we have globally. Do those always align with the way in which the wider community plays, or after so many more games are played, does the probability kind of shift based on what is good, what is bad? That's part of what makes live development like a game like Legion so interesting and also frustrating. But your experience with Randy's list is very much what we saw several times in playtest, which led us to believe that speeders were going to be quite powerful in the new edition. Now, maybe they still are, and people just haven't explored it. Maybe they're a little overvalued because of our experiences with them versus how they work within the wider aggregate of how players approach the game. I think all of that is valid. So I don't know if Pagani has more to add to that or if I stole his thunder.
No thunder stolen. You're good. But I think earlier, right, I said we went back, we did a bunch of math. And math is great when you're talking about attack dice and defense and how many hit points and how many effective wounds does something have and things like that, right? Math is great for all that kind of stuff. What math can't do is anything that involves positional elements on the table, right? So you can create a spreadsheet that does all sorts of crazy math and does all sorts of crazy stuff, but that will never take into account positional elements and moving around the table. So things that move very quickly, things that move very slowly, that math is much harder because that has to be taken into account with those things. And it's at a much higher impact level the farther away from the norm you get. So like you can look at like some of the prepared position speed 1 units. You can look at speeders for this kind of discussion, right? All these things. And that's very hard to assess.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Well, kind of speaking, I'm going to ask an Ahsoka question just because.
Because you have to. It's your brand.
Because I have to. I'm contractually obligated to talk about Ahsoka.
It's the only reason they bring you on this show. You're the Ahsoka guy.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I don't do anything else.
Yeah, that's now.
I tried.
It's like why they had oh Lord, I forgot his name on The Price is Right. His only reason for being there was to say if he had an episode where he never said come on down,
Yeah.
like you'd be like, why is this guy here?
That's
Give
me.
the people
That's
what they
me.
want. It's the Ahsoka question.
I don't. So, with her being out now for a little bit, could you maybe walk us through the process and maybe a rough timeline of what it takes to develop a hero like her? Like what all goes into bringing the character to Legion, and what kind of and like how early in the process are like her keywords finalized? And I think there's a lot of disconnect, like you guys were saying, of how different our timelines as players versus your timeline as developers. I mean, I'm sure she was done years ago and she's just not coming out. But yeah, just kind of talk about that a little bit.
So Ahsoka, timeline wise, I'll let Pagani talk about all the rules and the development, but just the overall timeline from concept to reality, it's a minimum of 24 months. Like that's from writing a concept, like a product concept brief that says this is what we're doing, this is what we think is going to go in it, this is generally what the character is going to do, sending that off to our partners at LFL, having the conversation about it, having them approve it, and then going through the concepting phase, the sculpting phase, the engineering phase, the dev phase, the art phase, all that stuff, right? And then the production cycle, which the production cycle is also pretty long because you have to do the tooling, you have to do the manufacturing, you have to do the checks, you have to get it across the water, because the vast majority of products come from overseas still. And all of that. So that's where a significant portion of the timeline is. It's not necessarily just us internally twiddling our thumbs and making these rules. It's the actual manufacture of the thing as well. However, with Ahsoka, there was some thumb twiddling because, as I'm sure you remember, Sir Mitchum, Ahsoka was confirmed like in 2021. And then we pulled a fast one on you and we gave you Rebel Ahsoka instead of Republic Ahsoka.
Yes, and that's why I bought a whole new army to play.
I will go on the record as saying that wasn't the original plan, but it was the oh gosh, now I forgot I forgot the term. It was when you switch to play calling football.
Audible.
The audible.
Yeah.
The audible.
Yeah.
I got there. It's the end of my day, so I'm allowed to slip a little bit. But we had to call an audible for a couple of different reasons. And then by the time that we got back to a situation where we could return to Galactic Republic Ahsoka, we were in the middle of doing the big rebalance and update. And so that effectively meant that we were just going to hold off because we didn't want to release a character like her and then immediately have to revise and rewrite her. Because she is very important to LFL in terms of, within the list of characters that they have strong feelings about and how important she is to the media and their plans and all this stuff. So we are very, we're very delicate with those characters. We want to do our best to represent them properly and all of that stuff. So she gets a higher level of consideration in many ways because of that, and deservedly so. Mm-hmm. So she wound up having a longer cycle than 24 months because of that, even if that wasn't the original plan. So there are situations where that happens, right? And if you pay attention to the SKU numbers, because you're one of those folks who I know there are detectives out there who like to be like, all right, how many numbers are there and which ones are missing and all of that. It's a fun little mystery game. The reality is that when a product is conceived, it gets a number, right? When it becomes an official product, it gets a number. So sometimes you can tell what got lost in the winds or got delayed or pushed based on how it only has 2 digits, and all the things coming out now have 3 digits, and what's that about? So if you play the sleuthing game, you can do that. But that was her thing. And because of that, we actually had her sculpts done fairly early, even before the rules development was really done. She shifted from being a commander and an operative, like a true operative, to the new system that she has. Pagani can talk about the reasons behind that. So take it away on the development rules, Sir Pagani.
Woo! So how early are keywords locked in? Not very early, as it turns out. I don't think this has happened very often, but there are things that change, like post playtesting, post editing. It's very rare, but it could happen. Where we're like, wow, that just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Put this on there or whatever. So that is very fluid, right? And it's not like we submit our concept to LFL and then we're like, these are the keywords she's going to have, and then we're stuck, right? The process is significantly more fluid than that. For Ahsoka specifically, that was a very difficult character to make and hopefully get right. I think we did a great job. I don't know, Mitchum, how we do?
Well, yeah, I think honestly, I think the thing I love about her most is that how different she feels on the table from her Rebel variant. Like her Gar version and then Rebel, they feel like completely different, which they are, but they feel like completely different models when you're playing them and the play style you need, which is excellent. I love that. And Speed 3 is great. I'm just saying.
Speed 3
a lot
is
of the
great.
complication of the character came from, well, she learned everything she learned from Anakin and from Obi-Wan, but we can't make her Anakin or Obi-Wan because then Anakin or Obi-Wan can't exist because she's going to step on toes, right? So how do we create like a situation where she can be kind of Obi-Wan for a turn with her command card, or can she be Anakin for a turn with the command card? And then can she be herself for the rest of the game, right? And that's kind of where we ended up in the design for her, is that she has her own identity, but she can be very similar to the people that taught her what she knows for small chunks of the game. And that kind of goes back into the concept of the customizable commander stuff. We don't want her to overshadow the other characters that are already there. That's also true of other characters joining the game, other named characters like unique characters. So there's that one there. And I don't know, she was really fun to make, and the like suppression stuff with her lightsaber mastery was really fun to play with, and yeah, I'm really excited with how she came out.
Yeah,
she was also, I think, an exercise in how to not do things with Master of the Force, and how can we do other things with that, with the like independent recover. So like, what does a Jedi look like that doesn't have Master of the Force, and how can we do that? Because she is a Padawan, right? Like,
yeah,
she's not old lady Ahsoka running around with her Master of the Force.
Yeah, and her personnel upgrade with clones is fantastic as well. And again, yet another dynamic of the character that feels completely different from the other two commander or operative slots or builds, I guess.
Yeah, the command
And
kind of upgrade with the characters is something. Oh, we're doing it again. Go ahead, Pagani. You're going to talk about it.
Sorry, guys. My internet is not. Yeah. The sort of command upgrade or joining units for Ahsoka is something that we're going to see more of in the future for characters, and it is sort of part of our big push to get more characters onto the table, where you can, if we had made her an operative, like Schick had said was originally the plan, right? Where we kind of ended up was, one, how do we make these different, right? How do we make two versions of basically the same Ahsoka different? That was very difficult, and we couldn't really come up with very much compelling stuff for the commander version of Padawan Ahsoka and the not commander version of Padawan Ahsoka, the operative version. So there's sort of a mechanical issue there. But then there was also the flavor idea of, oh, she cares about the clones, right? She really leads them. She leads from the front. She does these things that she learned from Anakin in this way. So how can we do that? Well, adding her into a unit creates a very unique unit of clones that you can only have one of. So it's allowed to kind of be more powerful than a normal unit because you can't take 6 of it. you can only take one of it, and it does something very different and unique and cool. And that is interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, I think going back to the ideas about hobby and about customization and all this stuff, right? You know, how many amazing units of clones have we seen painted, like the season 7 clones, where they take on her overall like facial features and looks, right? Like it's just a compelling visual, and it's such a cool moment in the series and for the character and those types of things. Being able to attach a character like that to a unit and then make their unit, right? To make this goes back to the Bad Batch idea of how do you put more character into Star Wars, into these things. It's not just make more characters. Sometimes it's give players the opportunity to create really unique character units by having a central or focalized character attached to them. And so it hits so many of the different beats, and it was an exciting thing to kind of suss out with her, although we had others at the time that may or may not be coming in the future as well. So the concept is definitely like it's robust, and it's something that we'll see more and more of. I mentioned at Adepticon how she's the very first kind of the harbinger of this whole new kind of way of thinking about how characters can function within the game and those types of things. So it was a really, overall like a really, really cool call from the dev team in terms of changing the overall effect and the plans. And it's been great to see the community really adopt it and love it as far as like what it brings to the table and those kinds of things. And I really loved how everything came together to represent, again, to feel like Ahsoka within season 4, because that's the Ahsoka that you're kind of getting, right? It's not the season 7 Ahsoka. It's ideally, the one that attaches to the unit is season 1. And then the concept of the commander is that that's like a season 4-ish version of Ahsoka. And so we still see that brashness, we see that arrogance, we still see the fact that she doesn't necessarily follow orders all the time. Where'd she learn that from? Those kinds of things, right? And to talk about those rules and to say, oh, we just picked those from the start and they worked. Not really. As Pagani mentioned, what happens is we'll create an initial design for the character and we'll say, okay, we think they get these rules. And sometimes it'll be like, well, we'll give her a unique mastery, but we don't really know what the mastery does yet. So we'll write some nonsense and say this is what it does. But things like independent, they came much later in the cycle. So she didn't always have that rule. She got that later when, through discussions at playtest and with the playtesters internally and stuff, Dursum came and he said, I want to do this. I think this would be a really interesting concept to apply. We've been talking with some of the playtesters about it. This gives her the ability to use force powers. It also really represents the character. And anytime you can say something represents the character, I'll give it a thumbs up.
Yeah.
And so it's like Pagani said, it's a very fluid process. Obviously you put keywords on a character the second that it's going to go into dev, right? That's the first step is you slap some keywords together and you say, okay, I think this is what the character does. Sometimes you say the character does this and we don't have a rule for it. So I guess we'll have to make a new keyword. But we try to do that sparingly, just to make sure that there's not like a literal phone book for all of those folks who remember what a phone book is, worth of pages of keywords, right? They're universal for a reason, friends, because they're supposed to get used a lot.
That's a good answer.
Awesome.
And just in general, I like the feel for clones now, where we're really customizing our infantry units. You guys have said that earlier, and I was like, I'm not really sure what they're talking about, but I'm seeing the vision now as you're getting more things to put in there. So it's really cool. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I think it's a fun identity for them, and really leans into that elite kind of customizable force that can tackle anything you want. So, for whatever reason, not necessarily due to choice, the clones always seem to be the forerunners for proving what we're trying to do with everything, more or less, in terms of just like, okay, well, this is how a character unit works. This is how a character works within a unit as an attachment. This is how, faction identity should feel, right? We talk a lot about the different faction identities, and clones are much closer to what I would call our goal, or our finish line than some of the others, right? And some of that is based on releases that haven't come yet. Some of it is based on, more exploration in terms of different things and all of that stuff. But we're constantly moving everything towards that direction. It's just funny how Republic often seems to sometimes be a little bit ahead, but
Love it. Keep up the good work.
what do you do?
Great. Okay, so last question. We've kind of touched on the Super Squad part of it, so I'm going to skip that. But stuff like the ARFs have the duo upgrade. Is this kind of like a Super Squad light, or is that kind of typically we had the extra guy? This is double the guys. I'm assuming approximately double the points. I just don't know if that was kind of what you're going for, or is that something we can expect more of in future units?
I'm waiting.
Yeah, I think is I think the short version. Yes, that is sort of the Special Forces version of a squad upgrade, right? I got him again. Here we go. My internet is lovely. But yes, I think the sort of the duo unit is that version of that, right? We did a lot with super squads back in the beginning, and we had super squads for literally every unit in the game, and it got very out of hand very quickly. We Special forces and other slots are sort of priced differently in terms of efficiency than core units are, and when we applied that efficiency into super squads, it did not do good things.
Could have had double
Maybe
arcs.
it did two good things to the game. So yeah. I mean, can you imagine 8-man units of arcs running around? That would be wild. It was wild, actually. So yeah,
Yeah, there was another consideration to the two ARF thing as well, which was much like the KX droids in the Riot Troopers, which are 2. We knew that based on the schedule, those units would bridge some of the traditional Legion to new Legion gap, but we didn't exactly know precisely how that timing would work at the time because we were working a little further ahead, right? So we had a general idea of like, this is what we're aiming for, but we can't commit to that before we hit print on the production side. So we can't, even if we had wanted to make the decision that they were going to have full squads, right? That that Riot Troopers could go to 10, or that ARFs as a special forces could go to 10. We knew that the original Legion rules did not support that because we had tried and failed with the weakways many times. And the weakways are quite low quality compared to, stormtroopers or ARF troopers, especially. So what we did is we kind of split the difference and we said, okay, where's our level where we can make these kind of decisions to make some design space for bigger squads in the future, but also not run into a situation where if they have to live within traditional Legion, they're going to break everything. So that was part of it too. There is some nuance in terms of like, okay, when you have these, because the sleepers, the riots, and then the crab droids and the ARF troopers and the aqua droids too, they were all transitional units, and so we had to assume that they had to live in both worlds peacefully. And so we tested and designed them for both. And we kind of mentioned that when the sleeper cells and the riot troopers came out, we said, hey, these are going to come out for in the classic Legion style, but be aware that we did forward look them into the new edition so that you're going to see very minimal changes in terms of like, they're not going to get a dramatic rebalance. You're not going to pick up that unit and then in 5 months be like, this is not even close to what I thought I was getting. Those kinds of like considerations. So the 2-person thing also came from that as well, in terms of just like, okay, we know that if they have to function under the traditional Legion rules, we cannot go too big. So where is that kind of line drawn? And doing 2 was interesting and different and kind of gives a nod to the bigger squads and the bigger sizes that we want, but it didn't break the math of cover in the old system.
Great. Okay. Well,
All right, so I feel like it went fine.
Okay.
So should we talk about riots? I need you.
Yeah.
I need to see the boxes get open.
Okay,
though,
I've got
before I
it.
say
I'm
anything.
ready to open them right now. Hang on, let me.
We're a very
Let me-
committal show on this. We don't do anything in the gray. It's black or white here. So yeah, this is gonna be great.
All right, here. Look
See
at
how
them all
See
shiny.
how shiny
Okay.
it is?
Yeah,
Okay.
I see it.
Okay.
They're fresh and shrink.
Okay.
Break the seal. It's you gotta get rid of the mitten box before I tell you that they're going to be worth so much now.
Man, I want to hobby these now. This is adding to the
You don't have to
pile.
build them. You just have to take off the
You
shrink.
see the pile of stuff I need to do? Okay.
There's a lot of stuff back there. I see a mining tie too.
Yeah,
it
that's
looks
like
like.
there you go. Bambi Labs, please sponsor us. Yeah. Here, it's open.
All right. That's good.
Okay.
You're fine.
Okay.
You're fine.
You're committed.
Okay. That's perfect. I need you to take the knife and I need you to slit the box cover though for me. Like just really muss it up. I know.
We've got so many hate
I'm
comments.
just kidding.
Oh no!
Oh no, the command. Oh man, I got the marksman too. Oh, that
There
didn't
you
mean
go.
anything. I
There
didn't
you
mean
go.
anything by that.
I just got we just had a comment on one of our shorts from like 2 months ago that we did, and the comment was, "My heart dropped as soon as you put the giant X on that box you're opening," and I was like, "Thanks for the comment, man, but I'm sorry.
It's just a box. It's
I know.
it's not a thing that you should be keeping.
I
It's
like
not a forever
the
friend.
sprues like
I know.
attached. It's a really cool thing. I know you.
Yeah, that pegging system phrasing was actually designed by. So you might see it in some other hard plastic kits.
Okay.
But we were able to do that with our overseas manufacturer in order to better prevent things breaking off of the frame in transit and stuff. And so it's a really neat thing. And the best part about it is they do it themselves. So our engineering team doesn't have to mess with it. They're just like, the pegs will go here, and it always works out really great. So it was a neat quality of life thing that is one of those benefits from when you work with partners for a long, long time and you get that really good rapport and they're like, hey, we'd like to do this because we think it'll fix some of the minor like transit issues that we're having. We're like, please do.
I mean, this is
okay,
super nice.
So riots, we've talked about them a lot. There are official changes. They are coming. This is not like they don't go live when we say this, but we'll give you the spoiler because you've earned it. You've opened the box.
Yeah.
You're going to play it hard. So the squad itself is seeing a points reduction, and the KX droids are also seeing a points reduction. So that, through our testing and all of that, I think they were slightly overvalued obviously from where they were. However, we've seen a lot of positive reception from the playtesters. So ideally, when those reductions go live for everyone, we're going to see riot troopers become more of a viable core option within everything.
These minis are great, by the way. As someone who's built a bunch of old stormtroopers recently, these are awesome.
They're very cool, right? So we definitely want to see them on the table more. And we kind of talked about that, I think, on the Notorious Scoundrels was one of the reasons they keep coming up in conversation is that they're so cool. Everyone wants to use them, but they just can't justify it. Wow. So
yeah, these are great.
With the points reduction, I think overall, if you take the full unit, it dropped 15 points. Is that right? Something like that.
That's great.
Like if you take everything. 16. I was close.
Okay.
I was close.
Wow.
That's pretty significant.
That assumes that you're taking the unit and the KXs, obviously. So it's split between the two.
Oh, I watched Andor. I'm taking the KXs.
You got to. Right?
Those guys are insane. Yeah.
So that like I said, the testing that we've seen on that has been really exciting and things like that. There's been a number of other things that we'll see some adjustments based on feedback and analysis and everything. So prepared position units are going to see a bit of a decrease. A couple of the speeder units we've talked about will see a decrease. Sleeper cells are going to see an increase.
Yeah.
Never fear.
Oh, yeah. Come on.
I'm free.
I don't know if it's that much of an increase.
No, these guys
a
the arcs. They were like,
increase.
"Oh, the arc nerfs are coming, Matt," and it's like, "Well, now it's your turn." Yeah.
So there are a number of adjustments that will be coming. As with all of them, we're obviously we're always going to be calm and considerate about it. These things have gone through testing. Some of them were going through testing before April. They just weren't ready and finalized by the time that we launched that, which we've discussed. But we are going to do that adjustment before November. I do not have a final date on that. So,
Awesome.
I guess now every single day somebody can ask, where's the adjustment? But that was kind of already the case. So it's probably fine.
Yeah, it's probably better to know that it is coming than like, is it coming? So,
but it will be before November. So
sweet.
Awesome.
The things we've discussed here will be happening. There's your big spoiler.
Cool.
Thanks for having us on. Maybe don't wait a year next time if you want to get some hot news.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Or do whatever. It's your show. You do what you want,
just
guys.
imagine what version of the game we'll be talking about then in another year. I mean,
who knows?
Gosh.
I mean, if the only way that we can keep coming back on the cast is to rewrite the rules in their entirety, I always threaten the devs with, don't threaten me with a good time. So,
Oh man.
Oh man.
Well, yeah, that's super exciting, and we are be looking forward to Christmas in July, maybe, or something like that. And
maybe
hopefully there's some cool mini extravaganza announcements coming up sooner than later. But yeah, man, thank you guys so much for joining us. Is there? But I'm gonna definitely give you guys one more opportunity to say anything else before I let you go.
Just thanks so much for having us back on. Don't wait a year next time. Like, we'd love to come back and chat some more. And otherwise, continue to have a great positive impact on the community. We really appreciate all the work you put into this show. So, and all the dialogue that you create and everything else. And we're always listening.
I appreciate it.
Well, awesome.
Get weird. So.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, get weird.
Get out there and get weird. You heard it here first.
All right. Well, cool. Thanks for listening. This has been the X and 1 Legion cast. And remember, X and O is just getting a little bit weird away.